Nate Streeter, StreetSmart Marketing, Paperboy Printing and Distribution. We are talking again this week about balancing work and life. And today I have Steve Lundgren with me. Many of you guys have met him. He's been with us for a lot of years, right, Steve?
On and off for a long time.
Yep.
Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. So this is going to be a two-part presentation. The first part, we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about the theoretical ideas behind balancing work and life. And then the second presentation, we will talk a little more practical systems, I guess, is the way we talk about it. But really, it's about practical, like how do you actually do it?
Yep.
So let's get started on this first point, which you guys already see up here. When we talk about balancing work and life and kind of trying to figure out how, for so many of you, this is a question that I don't think a week goes by that we're not talking about here as a staff. And hopefully you guys will get a chance to hear my conversation with my wife, Leah, and some pretty provocative. It was pretty interesting. She definitely said some things that I was... made my face turn red a little bit, but she was honest. I mean,
that was great. She brought a really great perspective to this, and that, as sort of more of an emotional piece with these two will be a little more from the practical and theoretical level.
So hopefully you guys get a chance to listen to that too, and you'll get a little different perspective from my spouse, who is married to an entrepreneur, who definitely at times has been called a workaholic, and who has struggled with all these different things that we're going to talk about today too. So anyway, let's get into this first point.
I was thinking, is that anyone we know?
That's me.
Oh, it's you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But perhaps every entrepreneur we know.
There we go.
So this first point, really, one of the things that I've learned as working with entrepreneurs for all these years, it's really simple. Work hard when you work. Don't take a couple hours where you're kind of slouching in the morning, or some of you guys are taking 4 days a week, you're going and playing golf for 3 hours in the afternoon. I don't have anything against that, but here's the thing. A lot of what we're going to talk about today about balancing work and life is you have to realize that if you're going to do that, it may affect your work less than it affects your family or your after work time.
Right.
And because then all of a sudden you come back to the office at 4 o'clock after playing golf, you got so much work to do, and then you work until 7:30, to sort of catch up. And really the thing that you took away from was your time with your family.
Yeah, then you go home and say, oh, there's just not enough hours in the day.
Right,
Wow.
Exactly.
You can see where they went.
Exactly. So, this can manifest itself in all kinds of different ways as far as when you're starting, what you're doing in the middle of the day, how hard you're working. And there's lots of different things you can do to help with this, but make sure you work hard when you work, and that will definitely pave the way. You guys have heard us talk about this second point a million times, and it's definitely applicable in this conversation.
Right.
Work on your business, not in your business. This is really about instead of being reactive, you need to be proactive. That's probably another way to talk about this. If you're running your business in a reactive way, where you just react to everything all the time, it's often going to be the fact that you're not going to have enough time each day because you're just sort of running around with your pants on fire.
And that attitude then flows into your family life, because if you're operating that business where you're just responding to reactive, like you say, then that's going to affect your family too. And frankly, business is always going to take the priority. So your business is not only running your life in your business, but it's also running your life in your family and your life outside of business.
Yep. And most of when we talk about this, it's about creating systems so that you're not working and doing the work of your business, but you're working on it. And lots of books talk about this in a variety of different ways. Most of the books we probably recommend talk about this in some way, shape, or form. But getting to the point where you're working on it, not in it, will definitely help you balance work and life.
Because that helps you it frees up your time.
Right.
Because then you're able to, rather than having to do everything, wear all the hats, do everything, and the business can't live without you.
Right.
All of a sudden you create a situation where the business takes a little more care of itself.
Exactly.
Which then gives you a life.
Exactly. Exactly. And you're, yeah, I mean, just in general, you're in more control of everything, and
Yeah.
so the next point we've talked quite a bit about, Steve and I have talked about, is everything is okay for a season. I realize if you just started a business, you may have to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the first 6 months as you get it off the ground, because you don't really have the capital to spend the money on some of the things. And so you're going to have to
Yep.
put in a lot of sweat equity. But if you're in year 4 and you're still doing that,
Right.
and you have a family, something has to give, and usually it's them. And so I'm okay usually when I'm coaching people and I see that. I'm okay if that's happening, or they need to get sort of over a hurdle, or something is happening. We have a new product launch. But I think when I talked, in fact, I think Leah hinted at this a lot too when we had our conversation,
Yep.
was it's one thing, because entrepreneurs, they're always working on the next biggest thing, or some great idea. And so in their minds, everything is always exciting, and something is always new. And but then one thing can lead to another, and pretty soon they're always sort of in a season.
It's like you need to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
If the tunnel is eternally dark, and
Right.
there's no end, and one of the tendencies is to just keep it coming up with another thing. It's kind of like, well, if I can just get this presentation done, then I can spend some time with you.
Right.
Then we can do this or that, and then you get the presentation done, and then you're apologizing again.
Right.
Oh, I got that presentation done, but then it came back, and now I have to redo it again, and it's just another thing, and it just keeps adding and adding and adding. Well, eventually, it's kind of like the little boy that cried wolf. Eventually, your family's just going to say, yeah, we heard that before.
Right.
And when you start making these promises, you need to keep them.
Right. And I think Leah even kind of hinted at that.
Yeah,
Like, she
yeah.
was basically saying that, like, she sort of, I don't want to say she says she ignores those things now, but in a sense, she did kind of say that.
Yeah.
And she basically, I think what she really said was, that doesn't really mean anything to me. What matters to me is the systems that we build as a family. And again, we'll talk about that more in our next presentation, some of the more practical things. But anyway, so if you're finding yourself in that loop, gosh, I mean, you got to stop thinking like that, and at least if you want to have balance of work and family. The next thing, and this kind of fits into both of those things as well, is clear boundaries.
Yep.
When do you work? When are you with your family? For Leah and I, I'll be honest, I pretty much start working when I wake up. I read the newspaper, but I read the newspaper in a way that's mostly for work. And, I read all kinds of stuff on the internet every morning, and I read my Bible and, do these different things. But pretty much from minute one, I wake up and I'm working. So for her, she's not really thinking that I'm available in the morning. But at dinner time, for us, that's a clear boundary.
Yeah.
So, and I've kind of complained to Steve sometimes that I feel like that can change. All of a sudden dinner is at 5 one day, or 5:30 one day, or
Right.
6. So, but again, that's about boundaries. So, but that's one of the things that's important is when do you work? Are you, and I don't want to, some people need to work in the evening. Some people need to work on the weekends. I think for me, it was several year process where I stopped working as much on the evenings. Now I pretty much don't work at all in the evenings. I don't work on the weekends, most weekends, maybe an hour or two here or there. So for me, that was about creating those, but it took me a couple years to really get to that point.
So it's about compartmentalizing. Mm-hmm. It's about figuring out where, and it also has something to do with where you work too. If you work outside the home, or if you work in your home, it's really bad. If you work in your home, you really have this struggle with this.
Yep.
And especially, and depending upon where your office is. I know I went through stages when I was self-employed. Initially, I had an office that was set up in my bedroom,
Right.
and then I moved to another house, and then I had an office that was down in the basement. And then, now I've got a situation where, similar to that I have an office that's off in a spare bedroom. But, others, of course, have an office that's outside the home and away. It's a lot easier to shut the door on the business and go home when your office is away. So that's something even to think about in terms of
I agree.
where you're working and how you can create boundaries. And if you're working at home, you're going to have to work a little harder on making these clear boundaries, because you're kind of doing the same thing all in the same space.
Right.
And so somehow you need to compartmentalize where your head's at to, find those boundaries in those other places.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, my first business back in 2000, 2001, yeah, I mean, my desk we had like a sunroom, but it was basically part of the living room, and I mean, I think I told you, like, and at that point, Lee and I, we owned a duplex, and we lived in one apartment and rented the other. I mean, the place was, I don't know, 800, 1,000 square feet. So, I mean, you could see my desk from half the house, so
Right.
The thing is that, you have difficulty creating good boundaries that way, especially when no matter what, you could be working in just half a second.
Yeah, my first office, I used to make the bed, and then I had a workspace to lay this stuff out
There
on.
you go. And I think this kind of goes, some of the businesses we work with, they work with their family a lot too. And this is partly too. I know for me, there's been plenty of people in my family that have worked for me over the years, and friends. And, we creating clear boundaries that way is important too.
Right.
Because when I get together, for instance, at family events, we don't talk about business things. Even if they work for me all week long, we don't talk about those things. Yeah. So we've created clear boundaries, and that also helps you create work-life balances. Or Leah and I, she doesn't really work much in the business now, but when she used to work more, after dinner, we don't talk about business together. Yeah. That's a clear boundary that we've set. So... and this leads right into this next one, and this is the famous quote that my grandma always says, which is, you need to be wholly present. And this is the thing Leah complained, I don't want to, she doesn't nag me about it, but I think if, you heard it a little bit in her presentation, her thing, but this is something that I have a lot of difficulty with, because she loves movies and stuff, and I'm not a big movie guy. And I love to just grab that phone out in the middle of the movie, because I could care less about the plot or any other thing about the movie, and start working.
This is especially true now that we've got all these devices,
Yep.
electronic devices, that when you're with somebody, that you're not on your phone, you're not on your laptop, but you're thinking about them. And then what used to be true and still needs to be true is that mentally you're engaging with them too.
Right.
That they're not talking, and then you're off trying to figure out some new business thing, or solve a problem, or plan some new idea.
Right.
Your next conquest, that you're really engaged with the person that you're with.
Right. And, we've all been to restaurants where we see the couples, usually they're younger, where they both have their phone out, and it's kind of like
quality time.
And I just kind of imagine my grandma sitting across from them and weeping, But this is the thing, is that leave work at work, when home be wholly present, or whatever those boundaries that we just talked about mean. But you gotta be with the people when you're with the people, and which leads us totally into the last one, which is, no matter what, it really doesn't make any difference how much you work.
Yeah.
I don't care if you work 70 hours a week, 50 hours a week, whatever, right? 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, whatever. What we really don't want you to have is any regrets. I think if you have regrets, that's really the sign that you're probably not doing these things correctly. And, all these different things that we talked about, boundaries and being wholly present, and all the different things, is, if you have regrets, you're probably not doing these right.
And this taps into your values too. What do you value? And is society putting expectations on you, and you're trying to fulfill that? Or are these things that you really want? I mean, what's really important to you?
Right.
And at the end of your life, are you going to, what are you going to say? Are you going to have regrets about the decisions that you made? About these things. You need to think that through, and be true to your own values, not somebody else's expectations.
Exactly. I mean, Steve and I have talked about this a lot. Like, him and I are both really, we're family people, right? Wouldn't you say? And we really value our families. But and I know a lot of you are feeling like, well, I'm that guy too, or I'm that lady too. But if you're not, don't put too much pressure on yourself. I mean, I think you and I have talked about Warren Buffett before as a great example of this, is that I'm not really sure he values family the same way that you or I do, Steve. Yeah. But I'm not necessarily sure that there's anything wrong with that. He's just valuing things different, and I'm not sure he will have regrets when he dies.
Right.
Maybe he will, and if he does, I feel bad for him. But if he doesn't, as long as, I think, what do they say? Be true to yourself, right?
Yeah. To thine own self be true.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's really what we're getting at here is create a scenario for yourself where you don't have any regrets. We're here to help, just like always. We can help you find balance between work and life, and we will go through some more of the practical things in our next presentation.
Right.
We can absolutely help you work on your business and not in it, and help you create systems for that, and help you to prioritize what you're doing each day and week and year, and eliminate regret.
Yeah, there we go.
And so, just the practical things we'll talk about in the next presentation, things like vacation, and how do you spend time with your kids and your spouse each week. All those things we can help you develop systems for. So anyway, I can't wait till our next presentation. We will see you then.